all the other EMBL laboratories. And that is testimony to how embarking on an adventure which seems rather unlikely to succeed itself changes the odds and makes success feasible as long as a dedicated set of people take up that challenge. And EMBL has done that so brilliantly. Each of its directors general have taken on new challenges which seemed very difficult in the context of herding all the 26 cats you have?
Yes.
Members and getting them to agree to EMBL focusing in specific directions. And so I'd first of all like to welcome all our guests from EMBL, particularly its Director General, Ian Matai, and Raina Peppercock. Raina and Ian have been frequent visitors to India. Raina came here to organize a microscopy course for the first time in 2004, I think. That's a short while ago. And that really resulted in the microscopy course in Bangalore getting started every year and has become a world-class course. Before I go on and tell you a bit about the context of our collaborations with EMBL, I thought this would be a very good opportunity for our guests from EMBL to be introduced, and I'd request Ian to introduce them, call them out, and they can stand up and say hello, and you'll have enough time. Many of you already know many of them, but you can now get to know all of them and then interact with them over tea too. But,
okay,
yeah?
I'll introduce the people one by one, starting from the one who's sitting furthest back. So Karsten, would you like to, this is Karsten Saxe. He's an expert in cryo-electron microscopy and has been one of the major developers of software for the analysis of the data and the generation of models from the data. Sitting directly in front of Karsten is Rolf Apweiler. Rolf is the director of EMBL EBI, the European Bioinformatics Institute. This is obviously the hub of bioinformatics data resources, not only in Europe, but largely together with collaborators for the world. Directly in front of Rolf is Kath Brooksbank, who's in charge of the training side of EMBL EBI's activity, and she'll be talking later about this in much more detail and how it's possible to teach people from across the world to use these data resources. Then in front of Kath is Plemena Markova. She is part of the EMBL International Relations team who looks after our interactions with all of the member countries, associate member countries, and countries who are interested to join EMBL at some point. Then let's go backwards again. So the next person is Stephen Kuzak. Stephen is a world-leading structural biologist. Sometimes it seems as if there may be more than one because he publishes so many good papers. He focuses essentially on host pathogen interactions, on viruses, and he will be talking about that work. Thomas Schneider is not here yet. Thomas will talk about the infrastructure side of structural biology at X-ray beamlines. Behind Stephen is Marco Scandalin, who together with Plemena works in the international relations team. And then finally, for the moment, Lars Hufnagel is a physicist. He has developed different kinds and new kinds of light microscopy. And actually, I don't actually remember, but I think perhaps I'm the only representative of EMBL who's here at the moment who actually has a life science degree. And all the others, Rolf sort of has a life science degree, but he's forgotten all the life sciences he ever did. All of these people have come from physics, chemistry, mathematics, other areas of science, And that's one of the keys to success of the laboratory is the diversity of specialities which people come with.
Thank you, Ian. And of course, you'll hear from Ian and Rainer soon. I wish I could go around and have all of our Indian colleagues introduce themselves, but that will eat up a significant part of the time. But feel free to interact during the break sessions. And whenever you have a chance to ask a question or be on the panel, introduce yourselves so that everyone can know where you're from. I'd like to, before I start, also acknowledge the fantastic discussions we've had with EMBL from the EMBL side that's been led by Ian and Plamena, and from the Indian side by Shailja. Could you just say hello to everyone? Shailja Gupta and Vaishali Punjabi, who's here, and Sanjay Kalia, who's over there. And there are several other officials from the Department of Biotechnology who are heading various programs, and please use this as an opportunity to discuss various programs which we have. Okay, so let me, yes, and where's Shashi? Yeah, hi Shashi. So Shashi has, of course, been working with our international division to make sure that our discussions with EMBL go ahead, and I'll refer to some of that now. Thank you, Shashi. Okay, so let me very briefly outline, principally for our visitors, but it's very valuable for all of us also, to look at the context of science in India in the situation where India is today. Now, science in India got a substantial boost in institutionalized investment post-independence or thereabouts by the creation of laboratories and institutions in two ways. One, bottom-up, i.e. bottom-up in the sense eminent individual scientists driving the creation of enterprises of various kinds, and these were, Meghnad Saha or Shantaswara Bhatnagar or Homi Bhabha and people such as C.V. Raman and so on. And these were eminent scientists, successful scientists who were internationally very recognized but took on institutional building as an additional task. And that's pretty amazing anywhere in the world. And much of our institutional growth owes it to this bottom-up push on creation of institutions in science. But there was also simultaneously a top-down push of the creation of many new universities, many new engineering and medical colleges which did research, and these created a top-down environment in a time when India was, I think the life expectancy at independence was less than 40. Many of us in this room, if we were born pre-independence, would be dead. And even at that time, when there were huge investments needed in health and primary education and so on and so forth, India invested in science and technology, and that was rather unusual. In that context, where do we stand today? While the successes of those kinds of investment in a post-Second World War world were significant, what's happened in the last decade or two is a dramatic change in both the way the world views science and in the nature of science itself. The way the world views science today, societies in general, whether they are in South America, North America, Europe, Asia, Africa, is an extraordinary mix of the use of technology in everyday life combined with an extraordinary skepticism about the value of science as an enterprise itself. There is indeed a disdain in many societies for science as being of value. And there's a view that science and technology have created a dystopian world. This is therefore something which pretty much devalues expertise, devalues the quest for understanding, knowledge, and discovery, and looks for applications as something to be miraculous, disconnected with society and its participation in application. Scientists are substantially to share the blame for this viewpoint, because our communication about science to society has been more about the value of science to scientists as something which society needs to appreciate. We have been caught in that debate saying science is something important, invest in us, but we have failed to communicate that investing in us and investing in science can actually be of value to society in every aspect, both in terms of its fundamental quest for knowledge, for the value of discovery, but also the translation of discovery into application. In that context, India is in a very interesting situation where the government's support for science has only increased. I mean, it was flat for many years and effectively going down because of the value of currencies and costs of imports increasing. But over the last few years, the actual investment in science has steadily been increasing, and we have not got the usual midterm cuts. So that's the good side. Along with it, and I would still call that the good part, is an increasing demand that scientists actually engage with society in a broader way. The accusation which is given, and this has got a substantial component of perception, but also a substantial component of reality, that we, again, when we talk about excellence, our excellence is disconnected with the world outside our laboratories. In other words, our quality laboratories are a short walk from India and not connected to